The Dr. Terri Show is presented by Evexias Health Solutions. Evexias Health Solutions is an emerging leader in the integrative medicine on a mission to positively impact people's lives through the transformation of healthcare. Evexias educates and trains practitioners on the new, innovative, integrative therapies that support a preventative care model that drives vitality as you age. You can learn more about Evexias Health Solutions and many of the healthcare topics we discuss on The Dr. Terri Show at evexias.com. That's EVEXIAS.com, as well as find a provider near you. Now here's today's episode. Hey, welcome back to the Dr. Terri Show. I'm so excited about today. And if you are one of those people that is sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, you are going to love this show today. We are going to talk about some big concepts of why we're feeling so sick and tired. And then we're going to give you some tangible things you can do just to start breaking some of these patterns that's keeping you sick and tired. I am having an awesome conversation today with a special guest, Jim LaValle. He is a highly accomplished figure in the world of integrative and functional medicine. With over 35 years of experience, he's received recognition for his contributions, including the prestigious Clinician of the Year Award. In 2022, he joined the Evexias Health Solutions team as a medical advisory board member and speaking faculty. This year in 2024, he was appointed as Chief Science Officer of Lifetime Fitness. Dr. LaValle has had a successful clinical practice and developed the metabolic model for health, which he uses to help patients optimize their health. He created the Metabolic Code platform, which I use in my clinics. As a technology that analyzes health data, it gives personalized roadmaps for clinicians to help patients improve their overall health. He's so dedicated to education. He serves as faculty at George Washington University and the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. Jim LaValle is a renowned speaker and best-selling author. He has written 40 books on natural therapies. He's a pharmacist. He's a theologian. He's got multiple degrees and letters behind his name. He's very influential beyond academia. He's recognized as one of the 50 most influential pharmacists and has consulted for major companies in addition to Lifetime Fitness, Bayer, and CVS. And I know you are going to love this conversation today. Jim LaValle, you're a busy guy. You've got a lot going on. Really excited about what you're doing, not only with Evexias Health Solutions, but Lifetime Fitness. And it's really interesting to me because you have there's so much I want to talk to you about, like with your degrees and your pharmacy degree, and then naturopathic medicine, and being on boards and being part of the International Peptide Society and masters in theology. Like all of these things have to go together. So it'd be really interesting to hear a little bit about how you started here and got there, and I just need to know.
Well, I picked pharmacy because I was sick so much as a kid that I always went to the independent pharmacy and they gave me a toy when I got my round of amoxicillin.
Yep.
So I was like, you know what, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think I'll be a pharmacist. And it was really because I was planning on being an athlete. And then, got a Division I scholarship.
Wow.
And just said, wow, they got a pharmacy school. I'll pick that as my major. And because it's not going to matter, I'm going to play football.
Right.
And then, of course, I collapsed a disc in my neck and didn't play a down of college football. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just stick with this pharmacy thing. It's kind of interesting. I didn't have any passion to be a pharmacist. It was kind of interesting. But then the pharmacy school I ended up going to had a full-blown history of botanical medicine behind it.
Wow.
So if you walked in...
Is that unique?
It was. We still had to take pharmacognosy. So there's a few universities of pharmacy. Yeah, there's a few pharmacies that study it, but we had pharmacognosy course, which is the study of plant medicine, we had to take a full year of organic medicinal biochemistry.
Wow.
So I guess I started to really just love the fact of natural medicines in the intersection of pharmacy, because people go, you're a pharmacist. How could you write all these books on natural compounds? Well, almost half of the compounds that we use are derived from natural compounds to begin with.
Started. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so that was, I don't know how, by serendipity or by God's hand, like, I tripped into that space. And then the board certification in clinical nutrition was a natural evolution for me, because I was interested in nutrition, and actually the headquarters are in Texas, and sat on that board and chaired all that and helped that grow, and then started a naturopathic medicine school in the state of Ohio, got Board of Regents approval, got licensed in Washington, D.C., but to be honest with you, it's not an accepted degree.
It's so interesting. Why is that?
Well, it's because there's a national association and a board of standards for the school, and because the school didn't end up being able to survive,
I see.
It just didn't work. And it's like, all right, so, I don't call myself a naturopath.
Got it.
So,
That's good to know.
No,
but you have the knowledge, obviously.
Well, I think, all knowledge is good knowledge, right? And my master's in theology and pastoral wellness, my bachelor's in pastoral wellness, master's in theology was really just a passion to round out who I was.
Yeah,
it's not all about giving somebody a pill. You want to really cultivate your empathy and understand where people are coming from, and know when it's every bit as important to tell somebody you care and you're there for them as they're going through that struggle as it is to say, and here's the herb or the nutrient or whatever it is we're going to give you, or therapy, right? So I think all that was important. And I'll tell you, the one I really loved was, I got my diplomat and was a fellow of the British Institute of Homeopathy. So I learned under the Queen of England's physician, homeopathic medicine, learned, so got both the homeopathic pharmacy and homeopathic medicine diplomats, and became a fellow there. And it's all been a fun journey. I mean, I just wake up every morning thinking about, well, what can you learn next?
Yeah, I know. I love it, and I'm a lifelong learner too, so I totally get it. And it's interesting because it's one of the things I noticed about you early on. I've been following you and listening to you teach for many years, so it's really super exciting for me to be able to work closely with you in this space. But even when you worked with me personally as a patient of yours, I loved how, and I've heard you teach it this way, how you pull in that human side and go, all right, it may feel like you got some gut issues, but there's some pain here that you probably, we kind of probably need to work on. And I think that's something that art is kind of missing in a lot of areas. So I love that you brought it all together. And I've noticed even when you're teaching the most conventional of clinicians, you drip it in, you drip it in, because it really is. Because I think it's what our souls already know. I mean, we all go into this space because we want to help people, right? And so when we get into the grind of it, obviously, we can get away with that, get away from that. I'm sorry. So I love all of what you're doing, and it's really cool how all of those pieces of your journey have come together and just kind of cultivating into where you are now, and really working with some really huge groups like Lifetime Fitness and bringing wellness programs in. It's interesting. I would imagine, I don't know this, but I would imagine when a group like that is looking at, all right, we've been doing things a certain way for a long time, maybe there's something missing. There's got to be a reason why they bring in, a different aspect. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with what we really are going to dive into today, and probably really continue this conversation throughout different episodes, and that's the big overarching concept of inflammation, because I know it's at the root of every single issue. Cancer, heart disease, diabetes, it's all at the root. It's at the root of why, those of us that struggle with trying to be in shape and stay in shape and all these different health issues, it's the root of why we can't really meet those goals, or at least be consistent in meeting those goals. So let's just talk about that big global massive elephant, and let's just bite this elephant a little bit at a time through the coming shows.
Oh, that's great. It's interesting because whether I work on, professional athletes, I've got relationships, Golden State Warriors, Boston Bruins, you name it. Just spoke at the NBA Summit. Whether it's a super fit person or someone who's overweight, pre-diabetic, struggling with their health, and everything in between. My goal is longevity, whatever that is. There's this common thread of your body is supposed to repair itself.
Right.
And when it stops repairing itself, it starts to hold on to inflammation signaling. And that inflammation signaling is known as metabolic inflammation, or metaflammation leads to aging.
Inflammation.
And so
that's a great term.
Yeah, what's in the literature?
Yeah.
I wish I made it up. It'd been so cool to have that trademarked. Be like, I could just
inflammaging.
Yeah,
wow.
inflammaging.
Well, that says it all, right? I mean, that really says it all.
And I think the task is, how do we unwind that journey that someone took to get in that position?
Can it be unwound?
Of
That's
course.
the question.
Oh yeah, I think I've done a good job with my colleagues, my clinicians that work with me, and the ones that I've taught over the years. They've come up and said, man, that really worked. I think you can. I think it's work.
But on both sides.
It's work for us as clinicians trying to help people. And I always, when I engage with a client, I tell them, look, you don't build a successful business. You don't build successful relationships by just taking a magic pill.
Right.
So you're going to have to work at this in order to get well. You're going to have to make decisions about what you thought used to be fun,
right,
and what's fun now. And is it better to feel bad and be achy and foggy headed, but you get to go out and have alcohol 5 nights a week, and your main source of protein is the ground up beef on top of the nachos you just ordered, or are you going to at least make a step towards a lifestyle that creates a resistance to developing metabolic inflammation as we age? Because we all do it as we age. It's a byproduct of the programming in us, so we have to work harder. When I turned 60 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So when I turned 60, I thought, I really have to change the way I'm doing things.
And you're fit.
I'm pretty fit.
You look about the same as I've seen you for a decade.
Yeah.
Right. So,
No,
but things obviously were changing inside that you paid attention to? Or?
Well, no, I think it was more like me being a rock-headed Italian thinking I can train like a 20-year-old. That's what I think it was. I mean, it was like, you're not 20, you're not 30, you're not 40.
Yeah.
You need to begin to pay attention to what's going to keep you in your best possible shape. So I need to have more attention to flexibility,
right,
mobility, maintaining lean mass. Lean mass is the currency of aging. But also not being so concerned about being that alpha male that could out-train everybody and outlift everybody in the gym anymore, and be more about the satisfaction of doing it right for me.
Well, you even, you coached me through that, because I got on this mission.
Yes,
I'll
did.
be 57 in a few months. And I got on this mission. I was like, I'm going to be my fittest in my 50s. I was in the gym 6 days a week, sometimes 7, working out an hour and a half. And I'd plateaued, and you're like, you're overtraining. You're overtraining. I'm like, what? It really took a mindset for me to take days off. You said something, and that's key, because there's a big trend towards fitness right now, but we don't know how to do it right. So we're extremes, right? It's like, we'll do it gung ho. It's like weekend warriors. This is where you get injuries. And like, why is my shoulder always hurting? I must be doing something wrong. You're overtraining. You're overtraining. But you said something really interesting that I just want to go back to. That is such it's so foundational, because obviously people that are watching or listening to the show are interested in how to be healthy, how to be healthier. Where, no matter what stage of life or their journey, there's young people, there's older people, there's everybody in between. And this conversation spans across really the lifespan, right? Because you've kind of been talking about this, your journey since you were really young. But you said something really interesting about it takes work, and on both parts. And it's taken me a while as a clinician to release when my patients don't want to do everything I'm telling them. Dan made a great statement. He probably didn't coin it, but people want change, but they don't want to change. Or people want change, but they don't want to change. It takes a lot of work. And in clinicians, it takes a lot of work too, because there's so many clinicians that are looking for better ways to take care of their patients. They come to our trainings, they come to your lectures, and they're like, whoa, this is too much. I'll just go back to my script writing. Right. So it's a commitment on both parts. It's a partnership between the person that really is trying to be well, and the clinician as well.
Yeah, what's interesting about that, I've been in practice, with physicians, with dietitians, with nurses, doctors of nurse practitioners for now 40 years.
Wow.
So I've been doing this work 40 years. And what I really came to the conclusion on that is even if that patient's not ready, if I show them compassion and loving care and tell them, hey, I'm here for you. Let's do the best you can.
Yep.
And sometimes they go away, but almost always
come back.
They come back.
That's
and then they say, okay, now I'm ready to listen because I felt the best I ever felt when I at least started with you and did what you said.
Those 4 days I didn't drink 6 Dr. Peppers, I felt amazing.
It was incredible. It was incredible.
Yeah.
But that's I think that was my biggest learning, because when I was first doing this as a 23-year-old
you almost take it
Spartan.
personally.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I was just like, come on, you can't do this. I didn't realize most people didn't have that, I would say, almost dysfunctional focus that I had. That when I told something, if you would tell me to do 10 things for my health, which usually we try to give people 3, but you could give me 10, and my response would be, well, why didn't you give me 12? I could
I would be like, can I start with 6? Maybe 4.
So I mean that's what I mean is we have to meet people where they're at, because you have high performers, at Lifetime. Right. So Lifetime, the Healthy Way of Life company, amazing experience with them, because they are transforming a 2.5 million member experience into we want to wrap everything around you and help you to get the life that you deserve.
Membership model, and I take your money every month and you do what you're going to do.
So far away from that.
That's great.
But you get the high performers that you're going to have to say, hey, let's go. And then you've got the people you have to keep it slow, because metabolic inflammation, getting back to that, it's really interesting. Sometimes very simple things could have a profound effect.
Right.
And I always have found that if I can create somewhat of a profound effect relatively quickly on someone, we're going to get buy-in and it's going to happen. But you do have to figure out, well, where's the head of the snake? Where do I need to start? Because what I find, literally, I'm in the airport yesterday in Minneapolis. I call an executive that I work with. He hadn't been around. He says, could you look at my labs? I'm like, okay. He sends me a list of everything he's on now from someone that he went to.
Medication-wise or
everything.
Just all of it? Supplements?
Everything. And I looked down and I went, now, you were complaining to me about taking 5 supplements and the cost, and I was already helping you out. I just counted 19 bottles.
Right, yeah.
What are you doing? Right? And so I think it's interesting, because you get a lot of folks that end up creating that shotgun effect instead of focus.
Right.
Look, one of the reasons I love the fact I get to work with you and Evexias is the fact that you are absolutely committed to excellence in clinical practice, really helping people. One size doesn't fit all.
That's right.
And it's actually the first time I ever committed to working with an organization like yours, because of special. You and Dan. Well, no, it's how special you guys are, and I'm not kidding. That's the real deal. And I think that is where we need to go.
Yeah.
Right? How do we conquer root cause issues? And I always say root causes, because the big root cause is inflammation, metabolic inflammation or metaflammation
of that.
And then is it stress, sleep, diet, drug therapies, previous drug therapies, trauma, emotional trauma. I mean,
trauma in the womb.
Oh, all that, right? It's neonatal on. Right. I mean, you can't And so now I need to peel those things back, right? And it's great that we're getting this national movement now of clinicians that really want to go there.
Right. And I think post-COVID syndromes have been driving that a lot because people are recognizing, clinicians are recognizing that's real. So taking back the metaflammation, conversation, let's just kind of break that down because that is the root cause.
Yes.
So let's just break down what are some of the root causes of the root cause. You started to talk about that, but that'll be something really interesting that people would want to know.
Yeah. So, back when I wrote Cracking the Metabolic Code 2002, I'm doing second editions coming out this year.
Good, because you can't find them on Amazon anymore. So you stopped printing first edition.
Well,
We're waiting.
Because I'm getting second editions coming out. Yeah. That was the first, 1997 is when I first coined Metabolic Code. But that was that first shot at, well, what are all the things that make you not feel good? Well, now let's fast forward 25 years later. So if you think of metaflammation, it can be caused by all those things we just mentioned. Stress. It could be a vector like COVID. I mean, COVID's even now indicated in development of diabetes. Mm-hmm. I mean, not just neurologic problems, not just chronic fatigue, but there's a lot of literature coming out. So a vector, Epstein-Barr causing autoimmune thyroid, right?
Right.
So a vector. It could be an environmental burden, mold, metals, pesticides. We're getting exposed to a lot of stuff. Technology, yes. I mean, what a blessing and a curse at the same time. But I'll tell you what, since I've been wearing aluminum on my head, it is so much better. I created a Reynolds Wrap hat, and I feel so much clearer.
I bet you do, and you look amazing.
Yeah, of course.
You should have worn it today.
I didn't want to scare anybody.
Yeah.
So anyway,
they might too now. Who's this weird guy? Because let's see, he eats cricket protein powder and wears a Reynolds Wrap hat. Yeah. He really doesn't.
I don't. I know. I do not.
Probably would work though.
Yeah. So the big thing is, so there's vectors, environmental burden, all that. Emotional trauma, like you talked about, from the womb out. And then there's sleep pattern disturbances just by themselves. Everything else could be good, and you have a bad sleep pattern disturbance, and it's bad.
And that has root causes. We're melatonin deficient because we have too much light stimulation. There's so many pathways we could go down, right?
Absolutely. So you look at, it could be intrinsic, like an intrinsic cell defect. You're not as good at detoxifying maybe.
Right.
Or maybe you metabolize hormones differently, or maybe you're an MTHFR gene SNP person, so you don't methylate well, right? So you could have an intrinsic cell defect, but in the end, you turn on the inflammation button. For whatever reason, you hit that button. And there's two things that can occur. One is, especially if it's more psychogenic, like a lot of stress, we live in allostasis. Our brain directs the body and says, hey, everything's okay. I got this. This is good. Then when you get an overload of physical trauma or stress, people that overtrain, and or emotional trauma, you go to allostatic load. And that's when your brain changes the way it communicates with all your other organs. So now it's telling your thyroid something different. It's telling your adrenal gland something different.
Because it's trying to survive.
Bottom line is it's trying to save you.
Yeah.
That's right. White tiger's chasing you all the time.
Right.
So basically, inflammation gets turned on in order to neutralize the effect of that stressor.
It's a positive thing in the beginning.
That's
inflammation. It's to protect us. But when it is prolonged is when we see the issues, right?
That's exactly it. And so inflammation gets turned on. It resolves the problem. Turn off inflammation. Return to what's called homeostasis. And the why I bring up homeostasis is I also get people that think we need to, just like we overtrain, like I need to train as hard as I can, as long as I can. I'm going to pulverize my immune system until it breaks down, which happens with professional athletes, Olympians all the time. They end up having to withdraw from the finals because they get a cold or flu because their immune system broke down. We can also overdo it with our chemistry.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? And a good example is, peptides, right? love peptides. We're both super fans.
Right.
We see the benefit.
We'll be talking a lot about peptides.
Yeah, but the bottom line is you got some people out there teaching, do 10 shots 5 times a day and live by it and, all that. And so there's a way that we overdo it. But the bottom line is when you do not turn the inflammation switch off, now it sets in a whole pattern of metabolic disruption that ends up at the cellular level, inside the cell. The earliest work of this was a Dr. Reckwig in the 1960s. He fully laid this out. And, we're all beating our chests here in the year 2022,
right.
Or 24. When am I talking about 22? But 24, because we're like, wow, we get it, right?
We're so smart.
We're so smart. Because the very first sign, and you see this all the time, we don't have Crestor deficiencies. I know it's shocking.
Or Prozac.
Or no, neither one. But the very first thing that happens is you start to get dyslipidemias. You start making bad actor lipids, and that's a very early sign of making compounds that's going to shorten your life, like lipoprotein little a, directly correlated to a reduction in longevity, right? So bad lipids is number one. You start to lose lean muscle mass. So, all these folks are out there in the last 5 years, IGF-1 is bad, IGF-1 is bad. No. Not enough IGF-1 is bad, and too much IGF-1 is bad.
And IGF-1 is insulin-like growth factor.
Yeah, it's a part of growth hormone response, and we want to release our growth hormone. And it's how we keep our lean mass as we age, right? So it's about being in the bell curve of it and not overproducing, which usually happens in diabetes and metabolic syndrome, or underproducing because we're worn out and we've become catabolic because we produced way too many stress hormones like cortisol.
So this is going to be such a fun journey breaking this down, over the course of all these shows, because there's so many places we can go. So we talked about this big concept, and then, of course, stress being one of them, but probably just as big of one is obviously diet, and our standard American diet, which is acronym is SAD. I always point that out because it truly is. And just all of the disease that comes with that, and then breaking down the issues with the gut, and it can go all over the place. And I think Hippocrates was brilliant when he said all disease begins in the gut, because it really kind of does, right? I mean, so we'll definitely talk about the gut. But if we're, if people are listening to us talk about this big concept, it sounds so overwhelming, right? You're like, oh my gosh, there's all these things, and it's stress, and it's this, and it's this, and this is what I see is like, just forget it. I just will have to live this way. I'll just keep taking my pills and just status quo. But it's simple. It's not easy to make changes. But just, what would be one of the first things that you could tell listeners that you could start, maybe the top 3 things that you could just little tweaks to changing your lifestyle just to tamper down the fire of inflammation on their own until they find somebody that understands this concept and can help them.
And the first thing I would say is, to your point, is I think you have to explain it to someone as if it's a journey back to wellness.
That's good.
We're not going to get everything accomplished at one time. Let's take big issues that are really limiting your health. Right. And so we're going to talk about those 3 things, which I think are the big issues. And because the other end of the spectrum is people that do go to practitioners are now on, oh my gosh, I'm on a paleo, vegan, FODMAP, carnivore, breatharian diet, and I really don't know what to eat now, and I'm not sure how to eat, what time to eat. Should I be on a 17-7, a 16-8, a 13-11? I'm really getting confused.
The intermittent fasting, that's a whole show in and of itself.
It is, actually. Yes. So, but anyway, the top 3 things. The first one is I think probably the hardest one, because life isn't always easy. Some people are working 2 jobs, single parent, they got maybe children that are having a tough time. I mean, stress and understanding, how do I cope with stress?
Right.
So that I'm not in continual fight or flight. What would be the big signs of that? having trouble sleeping, either can't get to sleep, thinking about things, or waking up in the middle of the night. You're ruminating about it. You're feeling overcommitted and anxious during the course of the day. You get home, you have the best intentions not to eat comfort food, but you find yourself you're hugging the potato chip bag.
Like you're so
in
love.
I love you. Oh. Thank you so much. Right? And you're licking your finger to get the last bit of salt out of the bottom of it, right? All that.
All the hedonistic.
The whole hedonistic pathway. Yeah, I get under stress and I'm going to trigger alcohol, food, gambling, whatever. That's hard because some of that stuff's hardwired in your genes. So you got to really work at, how am I going to calm down? You mentioned something before we started the show, getting people to breathe.
Yeah.
I teach people box breathing because I know they're not going to take, if I say to them, take 30 minutes to meditate or go to a class. Teach me how to box
breathe right now.
Box breathing. Okay, this is perfect.
If I was your patient, because I am.
This is real easy. It's 4 seconds in.
Let's see. Let's count it.
4 seconds in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4. Exhale on 4 and think about your stress of the day, the traffic this morning, and letting it go. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, and deep breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4. Think about the stress you're releasing from your day on your exhale, and then you hold again. You do this because it drops your diaphragm and resets your nervous system from being sympathetic driven to now a balance of parasympathetic tone, which also leads to better heart rate variability, better signaling of your brain to your heart as to how it's pumping, no more high resting heart rates, right?
Right.
So I require people, it's like, I want you to do that at noon at lunch for 3 minutes.
I know, I'm melting in the chair now. I'm like,
isn't that crazy?
It's crazy because I can feel everything just simmer down,
And quickly.
That is such a great first thing you can do. It's free, know.
Doesn't take anything to do it, right? Other than 3. I tell people 3 minutes twice a day. It's interesting. Like morning and evening is great. You're done with your work day, do it again. If you're having trouble sleeping, do it one more time. When I teach people that, they go, you know what? If I'm in a traffic jam or I'm really agitated, I just do 1 box breath and it resets me.
Yeah, it really does.
And so I think it's really important that we let people know that life isn't perfect. It's kind of messy.
Right.
Sometimes it's stressful. But if you have tools to help you cope with stress, whether it's therapy, great. I'm not discounting that. But even with therapy, you're going through it psychologically. What this is doing is resetting you viscerally.
Because physically, something is happening in your body.
Right.
You do all and I'm a big proponent of therapy, prayer, meditation.
All that.
It's all great, but you do need to kind of do a reset. Because I would imagine, I'm just guessing here now, but I would imagine just even doing that box breathing before you started down towards the pantry could shift even choices there, right?
Absolutely. Like right now, I am super jacked up. I'm all at 59 beats a minute.
Woo!
I mean, I'm just smoking hot right now. But it's only because I started doing breathing techniques. First, learning it from actually a Taoist, Tai Chi master. I mean, I went and learned how to breathe.
Yeah.
I started doing that when I was 24 years old. And it's interesting. Eventually, it does become kind of automatic if you're building it as part of your lifestyle. So the breath work is important. That's tip
21
one.
days to habit. Is that a real thing? Okay.
Yeah, I think in some people, if you're like me and you told me it'd be one day it's a habit because you told me to do it. But some people, it takes a while. So that's super important. The next one.
3 times a day for 3 minutes.
It'd be great if you could do it 3 times a day.
But 2 minimal.
2 minimal.
Got it.
6 minutes
2
a day.
2 minimal. 3 minutes.
That's not much of anybody's time, right?
Yep.
You waste that much time on Instagram. Most people.
More than that.
Right? I'm just saying, right? It's like, Facebook. And so that's one. The next one is, and it's tied to the stress. You have to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
You got to do, I'm starting with things that don't cost money that you don't have to take, right?
Sure, yeah.
These are 3 simple things. And you have to do everything you can It's interesting. People walk in their house at night. What do? Turn on every light in their house.
TVs, lights, yep.
Everything. Boom, boom, boom. Like this. I really try to teach people about how do you calm your experience at home in the evening. Less lighting. You're going to watch TV. Let's face it. Most people are going to watch TV. But you could stop a little earlier.
Right.
You can start to wind yourself down. You can make sure your room is dark.
Don't
Do
have a
your
TV
deep
in the
breathing.
bedroom.
Don't have a TV in the bedroom, right? Take a bath. Use Epsom salts. Do what it takes to get you to calm down. Now, sometimes that might mean you got to take some suntheanine or you got to take some Relora and suntheanine. Sometimes you need to take something to calm you down. And remember, if you're having trouble sleeping at night, it's because your brain is hyper aroused during the day. And so sleeping and conquering sleep issues is about how you're dealing with your daily life. It's not just about what you're doing at bedtime. But it's important because let's face it, poor sleep is tied to everything from heart disease to diabetes to dementia. And then when you add on top of it, I'm 50 pounds overweight because I haven't been doing what I need to do. And I have compassion for that. I know I've told you, my brother was 476 pounds at one point in his life. I love people of all sizes, but I do want to help them understand it's a big comorbidity. It's a big problem. But if you get that weight on and now you have apnea, now you've really ratcheted up that metaflammation, because I don't think when people see your apnea, they don't understand.
They just think they're snoring.
Right? It's like, no, you're stopping breathing. No more oxygen is getting to your brain, and your heart rate is doubling because of you're in an all-out, you're being asphyxiated.
Right. And they're in fight or flight at night. They're being chased by a tiger, and then they wonder why they're so tired the next morning.
Absolutely, and that's where people, when they talk about daytime drowsiness when they're driving, it's one of the big things I ask, because if you have daytime drowsiness, like, wait a second, I get in the car and all of a sudden I can't be alert. You better check and get an apnea test.
Right.
So we've got that idea of managing stress. Get a deep breath. Get your body out of that nervous system issue. Manage your sleep in every way that you can. Most people think they can get away with less sleep, and the reality is, for the majority of people, you can't. It's 7 to 9 hours. That's it. That's what it is. Teenagers more, and it's tragic that we're making teenagers, for example, learn these bad habits that they have to overachieve. They've got to stay up till midnight and study. If you don't have a 4.3 grade point, you're not going to be a success. But, oh, by the way, you're only going to get to sleep 6 hours.
Right.
In order to accomplish all that.
And you're going to sleep with your phone dinging next to your head all night.
Absolutely. So, I think there's all that. And the third one, it is about diet. It is about making choices. And I find it interesting. Only here do I find people skew diets in such crazy ways.
Right.
Whether it's, I've got it, like now the popular one, the carnivore diet. There's a lot, or a vegan diet, whatever. But you look at these long-lived cultures, and they just kind of eat responsibly. They live an active lifestyle. They move around. They eat seasonally. Now, granted, they don't have some of the issues we have of the unbelievable stress load and a lot of drug therapy when we're children, right?
That's right.
Throws off our microbiome. Now, all of a sudden, we start getting more reactive to gluten and more reactive to dairy and more reactive
to... Peanut allergies weren't a thing when I was a kid. We didn't have peanut tables at school.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, no, my gosh, if you bring a peanut into school now, you'll get detention.
That's right.
It's like a really bad thing to be a peanut carrier.
Right.
And I think, that issue does complicate it quite a bit. But I do think there's basic constructs that people should be learning. We were never meant to eat a half a loaf of bread before dinner.
Right.
Like you go out to dinner, you get a loaf of bread, and it's like
2 baskets of corn.
Exactly. Corn tortillas are like
so good,
mowing through. I know it's
until
crunch.
It's not.
But
let's go take a Tums. It's fine.
It'll be okay.
It'll be all right.
Yeah, but I think diet's super important. And I think people have to realize you got to start counting how much sugar you're taking in.
The most inflammatory thing that we consume, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Just by default, it raises your blood glucose, triggers more insulin release, and the higher the glucose and the faster the fall, the more metabolic inflammation that is triggered that leads to heart disease. That's proven. Number one cause of heart disease, postprandial hyperglycemia. This is not rare. It's half of our population. 50% of the population has been identified as either pre-diabetic or diabetic.
Right.
And now you got the rest of the population, the other 25% that's already heading that way and they're overweight. And, you know, we went through these iterations. I mean, snack wells.
Yeah.
You know, snack wells. You're
The
not
marketing's
you're not going to get the fat.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the saturated fat, low in saturated
And
fat.
now it's gluten-free, some of them.
Yeah, right. But still real high in sugar.
Right.
And, you know, it's interesting when I go to the Natural Products Expo show. I go every year. I'm usually speaking at it, or at least, you know, I have clients or consulting there. And I walk around, and it's still 80% high carb. It's just organic, natural sugars.
Right. It's still sugar.
It was grown by loving people who pet the plants each day,
Exactly.
right? It's all that, but it's still a high carb,
Right.
high sugar content food that is going to disrupt your glucose and insulin.
Yep.
So it is really important to learn how to eat. And the other one is, how much do you really need to eat?
Are you eating when you're not hungry? Yeah.
Yeah, and I know for me, I probably don't eat a lot of calories. I'm not undernourished. Like, I want to keep my muscle and that stuff, but I really try to be cognizant of, well, if I'm sitting at my desk for 8 hours today,
What am I burning?
what am I
Yeah.
burning? What's happening? I think I'm
Right.
going to really try to eat light,
Right.
and I don't think that happens because you know, all you got to do is walk out the door, drive down the street. How many different places can
Right.
you pick up some food?
Or non-food.
Or non-food.
Overfed, undernourished. Wow.
Almost food.
So much. I'm so excited. There's so many different ways we are going to go in these conversations. And I think, you know, breaking it down for everyone is going to be a lot of fun. So
Can't
I
wait.
really appreciate you being here. Jim LaValle, and really appreciate his time and expertise. It's so much fun. Don't be overwhelmed. We're going to break it down into bite-sized, no pun intended, pieces for everyone to really just take home some just tangible things that you can start with and some things that you might want to get extra help with. So really thank you for joining us today, and we will see you next time.